All right, you're good to go, Aaron. Everyone make sure to mute yourself.
Man, I see Brad's already prepared with a global give back shout out. I like it. Well, welcome everyone to this. Really excited to hear from last week what all happened for you guys out there. This is really one of the exciting calls, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to lead this because it's like we talked about action, about things to overcome, and then with this week we get to see, well, what happened out there, and it's really exciting. So just a quick reminder. So from last week we talked about one, how to bring up the product with somebody, how to bring up the business with somebody, and then we also talked about your chicken list out there. So that's what we covered, and so I would love to open this up for a few minutes for some shares and really get some of the victories. And by victories, I mean not like something went the way you planned it or like that someone signed up. That would mean not necessarily be quote unquote a positive outcome, but I want to hear where you stepped out from a place where you were stopped before, and that is a victory to me. And then just what happened. And so I know, for instance, that Danielle over there really stepped out, and so I'd like to start by hearing from her a victory from last week, and then from the rest of the people.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. So I guess a little bit of a stepping out for me would be talking to strangers. I know, weird, right? I've been getting more and more comfortable with it, and University in Action really helped me kind of step out of my comfort zone lately. So I was at the airport on Friday, flying home to Washington, and I overheard this couple talking about how they recently moved to Arizona from Washington, were flying back to Washington. And I could just kind of interject and said, hey, I'm overhearing your conversation. Me too. And I struck up a conversation, and they said, why'd you move to Arizona? Well, long story short, I ended up telling them that my husband and I work from home, and we wanted a place worth working for. And so long story short, that conversation passed, and a girl then came up to me about 15, 20 minutes later and said, hey, I overheard your conversation about both you and your husband working from home. And I've been trying to do that with my husband. You know, what are you guys doing? And so I was able to share just a little bit of the vision. And then I've been keeping in contact with her via Instagram, and we're going to be meeting up for coffee, the four of us. So it was just a quick, if I hadn't stepped out and been a little nervous to interject myself into someone else's conversation, she would have never heard the solution that she was looking for.
And I do think that's really funny that she was talking to somebody else, and you never know who's just listening in to your conversations. And the excitement, it'll attract other people, even if you're not even trying to attract them.
Well, so and I was going to say, and the girl even said, I don't normally do this, but you looked really friendly, and I wanted to ask you, what do you and your husband do? I overheard this. So it was just the way in maybe my energy of me being excited telling this other couple that she even maybe saw that from across the room. So that was a little bit of a victory for me.
Oh, Danielle, that is so awesome. And I can picture myself in an airport, right? And most people are looking down on their phone. And so if there was somebody that had come into the airport that you could just feel the energy, that had excitement and was sharing what she was up to, I can just see someone like typing away, and then they like remove the earpiece a little bit like, ah. So way to step about for sharing. That's such a great victory. So thank you for that. And who else out there? So what happened last week that you'd love to share about?
I'll go if that's okay.
Yeah.
I was super excited because I really was motivated last Monday after our call, and I think I had a really long chicken list because I made a lot of assumptions for people that I knew a long time ago, or I know more recently, and I was just making assumptions and choices for them. And so I went and kind of on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all last week, I came home after my day job and really sat down and created the opening to talk to each and every one of them, knowing what, I did some research on their Facebook pages, kind of saw what they were up to lately, and kind of created that opening as opposed to kind of waiting for a natural conversation to happen, because that will never happen. Is reaching out to people I didn't want to, and then also kind of creating new connections that way too. So
how did that feel?
Felt great.
Yeah, and then anything in particular that you heard back from any of those people that you started the conversations with?
Actually, my first, most of my conversations have been via social media or texting or communicating electronically. And so I did schedule my first face-to-face meeting. That's tomorrow. We're having coffee, and others may not be interested. I did find with some Facebook stalking that many others are part of other network marketing companies. So reaching out to those directly just to talk about, opportunities to bounce ideas off of one another and other things too.
Wow, that's awesome. One of the things I got too is that's like a new future. Right? That little bit of inspiration, you wouldn't have started reaching out, overcome that chicken list, and then now you have a face-to-face conversation, which is is a whole new future rather than before. That conversation wasn't even going to happen. So really want to acknowledge you for stepping out and reaching out, and that's amazing.
Thanks.
So how about one more? Is there one more out there you would love to share a victory? Like I said, it doesn't have to necessarily be a quote unquote great outcome, but let's just hear it. Where did you step out? Oh, Kylie. I know she wants
Kylie wants to do it. Kylie.
Well, for me, I had what we went over is somebody said, "Oh, that's a pyramid scheme." And I was just like, here it is, exactly what I was nervous for. And I handled it well initially, but then there almost seemed to be a confrontation starting. So I just stepped back and, what I took from it, I decided to walk away from that particular situation. What I took from it was motivation to educate myself, because I'm not, one, I don't want to get into a confrontation. Two, I need to educate myself, if anybody wanted to further that conversation. But I did take it as a victory because I didn't shut down like I did in the past. It was more of okay, I just need to learn. I need to get better at this. And here it is. I have an opportunity to practice.
Yes, girl, that's so.
That is so hot. I just had to unmute myself to tell you how hot that is. Get out of here.
That's amazing. And it's so perfect too, because not only your response, but also that you said, I just need to learn, because the more we believe, the more people can feel that. And that takes time, and that's just showing up. And it's so perfect. You'll be at Celebration, that you will build your belief like no other. Who's going to Celebration? Woo!
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and one more thing I'll just say about that too, Kylie, and thank you so much for sharing and stepping out and having a conversation like that. How perfect is it that was the conversation that came up, because that's where you said that you'd like to get developed. And so that's how it happened. But like what happened with Danielle, you don't actually even know who may have heard that conversation that might be like, man, that Kylie, she, has a great energy. I'm really interested in what she's up to. So, you just never know the ripple effect that conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
So great. Thank you everyone for sharing. And I'm sure there are lots of other victories out there, but I want to get into the meat. And so this is going to be, now we went from places you've been stopped or how do I bring up this conversation to follow-up. And follow-up is so important because the fortune is in the follow-up. And so who better, I'm going to kick this over to Lindsay to really kick us off here and talk about our content for tonight is really the follow-up.
Yeah. Gosh, you guys just fire me up hearing what everyone is up to and hearing that you're actually taking this and putting it into practice. I cannot encourage you enough that if you just keep doing that, keep moving forward, you will be shocked by what can happen in 1, 3, 5 years if you just keep honing your skills and putting them into practice. And there's no better conversation to have in that context than the follow-up conversation, because most of your new enrollments will come from being diligent about follow-up. I've had very few where they just enroll on the first call. It's kind of like they literally just say, hey, well, can you please sign me up for Isagenix? And I would like one of those President's Packs, and I would also like to do the business. It would be nice if they all happened like that, but they don't. So it will be in the follow-up that your business is built. That's why that quote says, the fortune is in the follow-up. Just some I guess, some statistics, that's the word I'm looking for here, that I've always kept in my mind. And, I've heard a little bit different numbers, and each person individually has kind of their own story. But in general, we say for every 10 people that you share Isagenix with, have them look at a tool, actually have like a connection, have them look at some information, 2 will get started. However, the part that I think a lot of people forget about is, on average, it's going to take between 5 to 7 exposures to the information before that person gets started. That's minimum. People like, this is one I always remember, Susan Sly, who's one of the top income earners in Isagenix. Her sponsor called her 21 times. And do you think that sponsor is now grateful that she did? And Susan wasn't nice to her at first. It wasn't like she was like, no, it's just not a good time. She was like, F no, don't call me about this again. So again, if you have people on your list who really have all the qualifications that you're looking for. So this doesn't mean follow up with every person who just desperately needs Isagenix. We're talking those who you see would make phenomenal business partners. You want to keep them on your list indefinitely. And the way I think about it, I actually heard this example given in church, but I think it applies so well to what we do here in Isagenix. And the example given was, this was using in the context of sharing like something you believe in that context, faith, but in our case, Isagenix. Think about it this way. Every single person in the world is walking around with a little card in their pocket. It's an invisible card, you can't see it, with a number on it. That number indicates the number of times they will need to hear about Isagenix before they're ready. So some people's number might be 5, and you've only talked to them 4 times. Some people's number, you guys, might be 500, and they're just not ready, and things in their life just have to shift such that they'll be open, but who's to say when their time will be? So I always remember that especially when I notice I'm getting really attached to someone or really like wanting it more for them, someone who's already in my business as a product user that I really see the business vision for, we can consider that follow-up too. Just consider that every single touch point is chipping away at whatever number that is on their card. And for the people who you really see that could be phenomenal partners in your organization, they never come off my list. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about creating a structure for yourself to make sure that you're keeping up with follow-up. With the caveat, before I even jump into this, I want you to know there's no one structure that is better than others. It's all about creating a structure that works for you. I love organization. So my structure for keeping things organized would literally bore Elliot to death. He has no interest in my structure, but it works for me, right? So I'm gonna share kind of from my perspective. I'm gonna have Brad share, from someone who maybe doesn't love spreadsheets to the extent that I love them, because it doesn't matter how you keep yourself organized. You just want to have a system in place to make sure that no one slips through the cracks. So when I am following up with people, when I'm connecting with people, I have a master spreadsheet. I put it into an electronic format just because then I actually have it in a Google Doc. If you're not sure what that is, it's just like Microsoft Word or Excel, but it's housed online. So I can always access it from my phone, or either one of my computers. So no matter where I am, I can jump on and access my Google spreadsheet. And when I connect with a new person, I just put their name and I put a little note to myself to kind of remember what we talked about. Even if it hasn't transitioned to an Isagenix conversation yet, but this is someone who I've kind of got my eye on, right? They're a positive person. They're someone that I would love to build a friendship with and then, see where that leads. So people go on my master list of contacts if they're just awesome, right? Not every person who has a pulse and a credit card goes on that list, but people who I'm like, yeah, there's just something about them, or maybe they mentioned a health goal, but the door didn't quite open for me to share Isagenix yet, but I have that in my mind to go back and now to follow up with them, right? So everyone goes on my master contact list. And then I keep a separate list for accountability where I go in and I put who I've actually contacted about Isagenix. Some people keep those on the same list. For me, my actual contact list is so big. I like to just be able to quick go in and see, okay, if I'm keeping myself accountable, in the last week, did I contact 3 people every day about Isagenix? And did I follow up with 3? So I keep that separate. Now, I've heard of a couple different systems for actually being able to check off the number of times you follow up. I heard Peta Kelly say she prints off big sheets of paper and then just puts a dash for every time she follows up with that person. I just keep a little note when the last date was. So I'm not actually counting the number of times. I'm counting when was the last time we touched base or I sent them a message and what was the result. So I'm just keeping track of the last connection that we had and any pertinent notes, so that I can go back. And what makes that that makes really easy is then when I'm in my follow-up time, when I'm sitting down and in my production mode, I can just quick pull up that list, scan through and be like, oh, I haven't touched base with that person. I'm going to send them a quick message. So for me, I keep a physical spreadsheet where I keep everything organized. But like I said, I know that's not the same scenario that everyone uses. So Brad, how does that look for you? Do spreadsheets give you hives?
Okay, so I'm going to be totally transparent with you guys. I think that organization, for me, it's kind of like that mystic, like unicorn. Like you really,
I love organization.
Like you want to believe in it, but like you've just never seen one. But that's me in organization. I'm like, I appreciate everybody else's organization. I'm very easily distractible. So luckily I married somebody who is better organized than me. But what do I do? So, I mean, how many here kind of can resonate with that? Like organization is not like your first thing. Is it, everybody's, okay, thank you, Martin, for being honest. Kathy, yeah. So what I've started to do, and typically we meet a lot of people through social media, or like we'll just meet people over coffee and I'll just hand them my phone and be like, hey, like, would love to connect with you. I'm kind of new in town. Or like, I'd love to connect with you. I think like you're really, really awesome. Add yourself on Facebook. And I literally take a screenshot of them adding themselves. Now, I don't have a spreadsheet, but I do look at photos of my puppy. And so as I'm scrolling through those photos, I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally need to reach out to Mark. Like, and I'll shoot them a message, be like, hey man, love to connect with you. And it's just like, now I don't have a Google spreadsheet.
But you also put alerts in our calendar. So I'll get, pop-ups on each of our phones throughout the day, contact such and such. So there is somewhat of a system. It's just a little sporadic.
If you're not organized, it's organization is really going to help you build this business. I've had some minor success being completely unorganized. I could have probably been a lot further had I been more organized. But if you guys are that way, honestly, get a system that works for you. If it's Google Docs, great. If it's taking a screenshot, awesome. If you just want to put little calendar reminders, like so that you have alerts, do that. Find a system that works for you. Organization is hard for me. And I know that I'm really grateful for this woman to keep me kind of in line. So that's kind of how I do it. I'm transparent. That's how I roll.
Yeah. And I wanted to give that other perspective because, again, it's not going to look the same for everyone. And don't stress out over, I would rather have you be a hot mess out there blessing the pants off of people than sitting at home creating the perfect spreadsheet before you ever go get started. Does that make sense? Right? You can create your systems as you go, but this business is built by connecting with human beings. So get out there and connect with them, then figure out later. You'll build your system as you go. But a couple of other little tips on follow-up. We were just on another call, and something Whitney said totally reminded me of this. And I know I've found myself on both sides of it. When you're having a conversation, remember, this is your business. No matter how new you are, you really want to treat it as a business and have the posture that your time is valuable. Even if I'm sitting around and I know my day is totally solid, free time on a Thursday, I'll say, hey, the best times for me on Thursday are going to be 2 p.m. or 4 p.m., right? So you've heard about that, like actually setting blocks of time, giving people time to choose from. The other side of it, when it comes to follow-up, conversations can go one of two ways. A lot of times on an initial conversation, that we're just kind of starting the process of how many exposures that person needs before they're ready. So there's typically a follow-up 1, 2, or 3 conversations after that initial one. Maybe I'm going to follow up and send them some resources. Here's my tip. Before getting off the phone with someone, always, always, always set the next time that you're going to connect. So even if they're like, yeah, I just want to take a look at this, I'll say, hey, totally want to give you time to do that. And I'll just be honest, my calendar fills up really quick. So let's put something on the calendar when we're going to touch base next, just so that it doesn't slip away from both of us. I know we're both busy, it's summer, blah, blah, blah. So I always confirm a time that I'm going to follow up with them. Now, do they always show up for that call? No, people are still people. But on the flip side, what happens, and maybe you've had this happen, you send someone, you have a conversation, send them the information, but you never say when you're going to follow up. It gets weird, right? We get weird. We're like, oh my gosh, should I follow up today? Wait, maybe one more day. Am I bothering them? Okay, I sent 2 messages. They haven't followed. They haven't answered back. Just clear it up for them and for you. Sometimes they even say that. I'm like, hey, I totally know how it is, and we all get busy. I don't want to feel like I'm chasing you down. How about next Tuesday at 4? Can I give you a call then, just to touch base and see if you have any additional questions? So again, just letting them know that from my perspective, I want to value their time and mine and make sure that they're getting the information they need, but I treat this as a business. That way, if they get kind of squirmy and they still don't want to commit to anything, I'll say, hey, look, doesn't sound like this is, it sounds like you just need some more time to really evaluate this. You're already plugged into our Stronger Together group. I'm going to circle back with you in about a month. How does that sound? I let them know that I can feel their energy. They're not quite ready to, make a decision now. And that's okay. But I still set the intention, hey, I'm just going to put a note to myself to circle back with you in a month and just see if anything has changed. Because that's the last thing I wanted to share. And I'm going to pass it to Lisa for some how to follow up. But things in people's lives change all the time. Someone who isn't ready now might be in a totally different place in their life in 90 days from now. And the person who follows up and is consistent will be the one who wins in the end. Because so often we talk ourselves out of connecting in the first place, but then we definitely talk ourselves out of following up because we feel awkward. Just think that you might be calling that person on the day that they need it most. So always get yourself in an empowered place before you connect. And I even, when I'm sending a message, if I notice I'm kind of questioning myself, I'll stop before I ever send it and I'll picture that person reading the message just in total gratitude. Like I'll picture them reading my message going, oh my gosh, Lindsay messaged me today. I need to get back in touch with her. Who cares if it's weird and all made up? That helps me send it with just like the most pure energy, letting that person know, hey, I'm thinking about you. I promised to touch base. And that's, I guess, the other thing that I always say is when I'm following up with someone and they're dodging me, you better believe that voice message says, hey, I'm just touching base as promised. Because whether or not they ever get back to me, I'm showing them I'm a kind of person that does what I say I'm going to do. You requested information from me. I'm following up like I promised. So just a couple of tips that I've found to be really, really helpful. Lisa, what do you got for us?
Awesome. Well, first off, Lindsay nailed it. Totally nailed it. And it really is. You want to have the next follow-up when you're going to touch base with them next. And I always set that appointment, even if it's, hey, why not, like Lindsay said, circle back in a month. But one of the things I, really want to, Lindsay talked really a lot about the house. But one of the things you want to, I've been doing this for 8 years. Okay. And as you've been doing this over time, there's going to be different kinds of people you're following up with. I have people who they seem interested, but then something happens and they're just not ready. I'm going on vacation. Okay. And I say, great. When are you coming back from a vacation? Should we touch base then? And they're like, yeah, I'll be back then. And I touch base with them and they're not, I just don't hear anything. But I never assume, unless they tell me I'm not interested, I just assume they're interested, the timing is just not right. So what I've done with a lot of people, and I've had people on my list literally for years, where, one of the things I'm like, I realize the timing isn't right for you right now. And I'll either say this or, if I haven't heard back from them, I'll message them, text them this. But would you like it if I just touch base with you when we have a special promotion or incentive going on? Because the company is always doing promotions and incentives, like every, probably month or every couple months. So, and when I ask them that, everybody has always said yes. Yeah, that would be great. I'm saying, I realize right now is not a great time, but he has a special promotion or incentive going on. And then it gives me the opportunity. They've said yes. So then every time, like this week, free shipping on anybody getting started. I've got a whole list of people in my spreadsheet that have said, yes, message me when there's a special incentive. And I'm going to be sending messages out to all of those people. Okay? The other thing is, we have people, and this is something, when you've been doing this for a little while, you'll have people who maybe come on, use the products for a little while, and then fall off. Okay? We've all had that happen. Okay? Again, I follow up with them and just say, hey, I'm just checking in, wanted to let you know there's a new seasonal shake that you might want to try. Or just checking in to support you. I'm just there to help them. I'm just here to support you and wanted to see if, you would be interested in jumping back in. And oftentimes people are like, oh my gosh, yes, thank you. I really need to get back in. Life happens and people just fall off. But if you're there, like, look, I'm here to support you, and would you, just wanted to see if now would be a good time to jump back in. That is a great thing. The other thing is, if somebody has shown interest in the business, okay, this is something that you absolutely want to follow back up with. I have a meeting next week with my hairdresser. Now, my hairdresser was the third person I enrolled. He was at the top of my right leg. If he had maintained that position, he would be in a freaking awesome place, but he didn't. But, for the last 8 years, I've known him for 29 years. For the last 8 years, he's seen what I've been doing. And he mentioned something to me. And, I keep talking to him, yeah, David, you should, jump back in, kind of teasing him. But he mentioned something to me that he is looking to transition out of what he's doing. And I just said, David, look, I don't know if this would be for you or not, and it may not be, but I think you could be amazing at it. And I at least want you to have all the information so you can make an educated decision, because this could give you everything you want. Could we meet? And he said, you know what, Lisa, absolutely, let's meet for coffee. So we met for coffee. We went through everything. He's like, well, I'm just not sure, yeah, I know I could be really amazing at it. I just don't know if this is for me. And then every week or so, I just say, hey, David, just checking back in. I sent him a few videos. I added him to the Stronger Together group. And I said, just checking back in, seeing if you had any other questions for me. Finally, he's like, still mulling it over. So finally I sent him a message. Look, David, I know this is a big decision for you. And why don't, I'd be happy to sit down with you and give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. Really tell you what it's going to take and what this could be for you. And he said, yeah, you know what? He's never going to come off my list. Because he could be amazing at this. So really, you just keep following back up with people. I've had people fall off, come back in, and then do amazing things. Honestly, Jocelyn is a phenomenal example. Jocelyn came in for, did a little bit, wasn't really interested in the business, but Lindsay kept connecting. She was using the product. She kept connecting. And it was, I don't know how many years later, but she finally, when she said yes, okay, something had shifted in Jocelyn's life. Things shift in our lives all the time, but something shifted in Jocelyn's life, probably Erin. But I kid you not, you guys, she said, yes, I want to do this. I think 3 weeks later, she was a Crystal executive. The next week, she was a 1-star. And the next week, she was a frickin' 2-star. Unbelievable. And what if Lindsay hadn't stay connected with her? What if she hadn't kept believing in her? She wouldn't have been able to retire, do all these amazing things, create all this, magic in the world. So stay connected with your people, even if they're in. If you now, some people we know are probably not going to do much with this, but Lindsay saw that spark in Jocelyn. So when you see that spark, don't let go. It could take, 47 times. Joni Brewer was approached 37 times over 2.5 years before she said yes. And she's a millionaire, okay? Sometimes it just takes a while. But just assume everybody's going to want to do this eventually. And until they tell you no, keep following them. So with that, I'm going to actually turn it over to the beautiful Jocelyn, who's going to wrap us up.
Well, thank you for what you shared too and said about me. That made me moved. Thank you. Everybody just led such an amazing call. Everything is just perfect. And I think what I want to end with, because I think you guys got that it's simple. What you say is simple. So I'm not sure that what is the what to do is really needed. But for me, what I had to learn for myself, because in the beginning there was all kinds of dialogue in my brain, blah, 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 I can't do this, all that inner chatter, or they're going to think I'm weird. And then I realized a couple of things. One, they're not thinking about me. They're not sitting there going, she going to follow up? She going to follow up right now? They're not thinking about us. Okay? They're not thinking about you. You're the only one thinking about them. So it's not weird, okay? But we make it weird in our heads. And so what I did was just start to realize I wanted to be of service. And they, like Lisa said, if they keep saying they're interested, then it's permission. It's an invitation to keep following up. It's not every day, but it's just being of service and keeping our promises. Just the why for me when I follow up and I look at my list, it's just of people who I can bless. If you think about organizations that are nonprofits, of people they take care of, they keep a list. If you look at, the Salvation Army, if you look at the Peace Corps, you better believe they have a list, So it's how you can make a difference is by knowing who you're looking, the people you want to keep your eye on and bless. Because raise your hand if what you're out to do is bless people. Yeah. Right. So that's the energy to come from. And, Brad wants to say something. Sure. Go ahead.
That was way quicker than I thought. I had to get off the mute. I was just really sitting over here thinking about it. And, everybody has a certain season, right? Kind of like Lindsay said, everybody has a certain number. I'll tell you how many times I've had people say, I just not now, this isn't for me, no. And then those people, time passes, their season changes. And you guys staying consistent, me staying consistent, that relationship that we build, that heart of service, as Jocelyn was talking about, when their season comes, we're just there to support, to serve, to help, to grow. But if every time I hear a no, I just take it as a not right now. And I have that in the back of my head, and I still keep them on my list, which doesn't really exist. I give my list to her. But you can imagine what it would be like if I had a list. But honestly, just take it as, people come in seasons, they come out in seasons. And when their season is here, you're going to be right there to support them and encourage them and take them all the way. Okay, back over to you, Jocelyn. Thank you.
Oh, sure. Thank you. That was great. So I think I'll just end it with just a goal that I made for myself was following up when I was doing this and I was still working full-time as a nurse and I was coaching a leadership program. I was dating. It wasn't like my life was empty. And I made a video in the page this morning about it, but I just made a goal of following up with 3 people a day. Like Lindsay said, it took less than 5 minutes. And if you just get out of your head and get in action, your business will skyrocket. And it really does happen, not from 1,000 follow-ups in one night. It happens from 3 a day consistently, under 5 minutes. And so that's, I think, all we'll say tonight. And then I think just to finish it off, Linz, did you, well, I guess I could just say it. So next end call, we're going to wrap it up next week. And, we'll have some juicy topics. What did you say is the topic for next week, Linz?
We are doing a wrap-up conversation next week.
Perfect. Wrap up.
Yeah, we're really just going to complete this and leave you empowered with whatever you did accomplish and help you set some big, juicy goals to implement coming out of, we always build toward events, and the next corporate event is celebration. Whether or not you're going to be there in person, you can always attend via live stream. And we just want to have everyone raring to go coming out of that event.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, actually, I did think of something that I wanted to say, and this may help one of you or 0 people. I hope more than one person. But for myself, when I have had these blitzes of time where I've created momentum, because there's momentum that's created in oftentimes a blitz. So I get inspired to follow up when I create my own mental, I call it a party theme. So I've created the healthy, I've had Wellness Wednesday was my party theme in my, just made up, right? Wellness Wednesday, or it could be we've done I can't even remember, these were years ago, but it helped me because I was just I'm inviting them to that party. When you plan a party and you're excited to invite people, that's made a difference for me to have those. And then I even tell them hey, I'm really excited. I'm doing this blah, blah, blah party, or not even a party. I'm doing this blah, blah, blah challenge. Make it exciting for yourself, that it's not just inviting them into starting this cleanse or something. It's something you made up. It's a theme you created. That really gave me some fun when I was doing this. So I'll end. No.
No, I was going to laugh at Kathy's dog that wants her to play with him.
But I hope that you've taken some things away. Everybody did an amazing job. What you guys all shared was awesome. So let's see some success. Post what you take on this week. It really motivates each other if we see what you do in the group. All right, guys.